welcome to the 19th edition of the About Small Business podcast. Really excited to be with you today. I'm talking to Toni Kearney from Groovy Inks. And if you're wondering what Toni does, I'm just going to hold this up. This is what Toni does. We've got our very own About Small Business mugs and coasters, which will tell you a little bit about what Groovy Inks can do for you. Absolutely fantastic. It's not a paid sponsorship. It's just a really kind gesture from Toni. So Toni, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
If you are enjoying what we do, by the way, please do hit the subscribe button and click the little notification bell, which will let you know whenever we've got a new episode dropping. So Toni, I genuinely love this. This is fantastic. Now, I haven't even sent you my logo, so the fact that you've been able to recreate this is phenomenal.
There you go.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And Groovy Inks. Now, obviously, we do mugs, we do coasters. Could you perhaps tell me a little bit more about what the business does?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a lot of bespoke printing. I sort of do custom clothing, mugs, t-shirts, all sorts of things like that. I get a lot of hen party and stag party wear. I do like a lot of swimsuits, things like that. And I've recently just...
Sorry, swimsuit?
Yeah.
And then stag parties?
Yeah, believe it or not. Actually, they were some of my best sellers is the swimsuits. I get quite a lot of girls coming forward when they're going on like these beach parties and they have the big sort of matching swimsuits. I can put their names on it. So, you know, it's what people want. And you find that people will pay for one day, you know, which is...
That's it, no.
It's great. It's a lot of fun, to be honest. But I've just invested in a laser cutter and engraver as well, so I'm sort of now trialing the world of laser cutting, engraving, glasses, woods, materials.
I was going to say, so laser cut. What kind of what would that involve? Why would I want something laser cutting?
Because it can be personalised as well, you see. So rather than something that's printed, this one can be etched in. It'll last you for forever. You know, and it's the timeless, really. It's
so similar concept to engraving.
Yeah. But, very similar, yeah.
Right. But presumably a bit neater, is it? Or...
Yeah. I mean, these sort of things you can do by hand and things as well, but obviously having the machine can make it 10 times quicker for me as well, so it means I can expand my product range even bigger.
Right, wow. So and how do you sell all these things via a website?
Yeah, so I've just recently went out into my website on my own. I've been sort of with Amazon, eBay, Etsy for quite a lot of years now.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I've sort of been in and out of different places. I've got for such a young person, I've got quite a big, broad history of business, you know, and sort of where I've been and what I've done.
Well, can we go back there then? Because I know certainly you mentioned school very briefly earlier on.
Yeah.
Were you feeling quite entrepreneurial at school? Did you enjoy school?
No, I hate school. School just wasn't me. I'm not academic at all. I can't apply myself academically. I'm really, really terrible with things like that. So when I left school, I went off to go to college. And I got about halfway through my first year and I said, that's not for me. Like, it's not good enough. And I dropped out, but then I thought I need to go back.
What were you studying at college?
I did all the arts. I did graphics, photography and art, fine art. So I did everything to do with drawing. That was the only thing I was interested in.
So really. Clearly you're a creative person.
It was the only thing that I could really wrap my mind around. I mean, I love things like maths and stuff, but like all the coursework and stuff, it wasn't me. Exams, they're not me. So I went there and I did that for a couple of months and I ended up dropping out. I didn't enjoy it. So
what was it about was it just the course that wasn't right for you?
I just applied myself for a couple of weeks and then I just decided I didn't like it anymore. I didn't want to be there. At that age, you didn't have to stay there till you're 18 like you do now.
Yeah.
You know how children have to stay on now. It wasn't a thing where if you didn't go to college, you could come out and get a job. You didn't have to stay there. You know, if you didn't want to be there, you didn't have to be there. You were legally out when you were 16.
So you left there, but then did you say you went back?
Yeah, I went back. I went back the following year to do my A-level. So by this time, I was already a year behind everybody else, like my age. And I went back and I passed. I did manage to pass, but I'm almost starting to look at universities.
So hang on, because you just told me you weren't particularly academic, but you're passing your A-levels.
Yeah, you know what? For somebody that didn't really do school and didn't really go to school very much in my last 2 years, I did so well in my exams because I don't know where it all sticks. It just sticks up in here and it just come out. And I come out with like B's and A's and things like that in my exams.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah, it's really strange how it works.
You must be a bit academic then.
Well, I can do things academic, but I
just
wouldn't apply
like
myself in the situation.
Right, okay. So schools and institutions you didn't particularly like.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did the exams because you had to.
Yeah.
You know.
And it kind of worked out.
Yeah, it worked out okay. Yeah, it did okay. And I mean, I did well in my exams. Like I say, I went off to college and I did my college and work. But then after that, I decided, my peers are going to university, so I'm going to go to university as well. I'm going to do it and I'm going to give it a go. And I ended up applying for mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And I thought, why have I applied for that? That's not what I want to do.
I was just thinking that myself. It's an interesting sort of...
Well, I was one of few girls really that applied for it. Every time I was going off to like open days and stuff, there wasn't really many girls. It was always all men. And I mean, that doesn't bother me. But it was like when I actually sat and thought about it, I thought, you know what, like I'm 18 years old. It's far too young to decide what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
Like I felt like I was really, really pressured into going in and like being, this is what you have to do and this is going to be you. And I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not me. So I come out and then I dropped out again. And that's it. Right. I'm not putting that form through. I'm not going to university yet. I'm not ready. So I didn't.
Which university did you...
In the end, I ended up going through a Teesside university.
Right, okay. So
I ended up going through a clearing place that I got for product design, which was well suited to me. Yeah. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. And like obviously I learned a lot of the things that I apply to my work in there. But that was another thing where I got to me last year and I just decided, this isn't for me. This isn't what I want to do. And then I stuck with it, but I failed my last exam. So that final exam that you tie in, all this bit that all your works come up to, your final exam, I failed. That was it. And I failed and I got a phone call off the university saying like, Toni, you can either come and you can resit and we can do it all again, or you can just take your degree with no honours. And I says, I'll take the degree. And I ended up...
A lot of people don't actually realise the difference to that as well.
No, so well, yeah, you know, like when I graduated university, I was probably still older than the rest of them. I mean, some of them were 18 when they come to university. I was nearly 21, you know, and even though it's still young, it was... like the age difference was still big and like the mentality and maturity about where you're at in your life was vast.
Yeah. I think to be fair, I mean, I went to university when I was 18 and the maturing process between the first year at university of someone like myself and when I left, I still don't think I was that mature, to be honest. It took me a little while after that to kind of start to get things together. But by the sounds of it, you're kind of in a position where you're at that level of maturity early on.
Yeah, well, like I say, it was like I did really enjoy my course and I thought it was great, but I think I lost quite a lot of interest towards the end because it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Like it was something else that just wasn't me. Like I've always been quite arty and things and I don't know what I was expecting going in, but like there was like so many people who were like fantastic at what they were doing and like I sort of felt like I was trailing behind a little bit, and I just thought, oh well, do I really want to be doing this for the rest of my life? Is this really what I want to do? Like, do I really want to come out and go and apply for a job and go and work for someone else? Is this what I have to do? Yeah. And it just, like, I took the degree with no honours and I was more than happy with that. You know, I graduated 6 months later than everybody, but I did it, you know, and that was that. And I had started applying for jobs. I applied for a place like Howden's, doing CAD kitchen fitting, where you go around and you design all the kitchens. And I applied for things like that, and it was always, Toni, we've had someone come in who's, you know, got 40 years experience under the belt. I'm really sorry you haven't made it. And I was like, you know, okay.
I think that it can be a bit of an issue with the university, can't it? You come out and then all of a sudden you then, I think the world sort of changes a little bit and you're up against people with experience.
Well, this was always what it came down to, was experience. I found whenever you went somewhere or you took your portfolio somewhere, there was always someone who had more under the belt than what you could offer, because you've just come fresh out of learning. Yeah. You're going to have to start at the bottom and work your way up, you know, but then someone comes in, oh, well, we can employ that person and not have to employ them and then employ someone to train them, you know. So why don't we just employ somebody who's got the experience? And that's kind of where I kept getting stuck, was with people who had experience, and then I was just sort of coming in fresh.
How did you get around that then? What was the breakthrough moment where you got a job? Or
well, basically I didn't.
Okay.
That was it. I didn't. I just so I did a couple of summers where I sort of did like part-time jobs, clothes work. I worked in a care home. You know, I did sort of just tying over jobs. And then when I come out of university, I think I'd always knew that I wanted to be off on my own. I mean, I'd been selling little bits on the side through university just to sort of help us along with student financing, because it is a bit rubbish. But like when we got to there, I managed to get myself with the entrepreneurial society down at university. And this is when my doors just started opening. Like I'd come in as a brand new person, and a lot of the lecturers were so impressed that they were getting us up to come and speak at their conferences and stuff that they were having. And I mean, I wasn't even training myself at this time.
Right.
But they were so happy with where my business plan was at that they started taking me with them to come and speak to like other budding entrepreneurs that were at university.
Oh, right. So is this why you were at university or once you'd left?
Oh, no. I've got no business background at all. I've just literally come from me, really.
Right.
You know, this was going on in me last year at uni, and I started getting really, really interested
So
in
what sort of
business.
things were you selling in your...
So I was still in the craft world, but I was selling more supplies, sort of. I see, when I first started out, one of the big things to do was to make phone cases with all jewels and little bows and things on them, and this is where the money was to be made then. Like there was people selling them on eBay for like £40 upwards.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, I'm not going to go and buy all them supplies off someone else. I'll buy all the supplies in and I'll sell them back to them, but then I'll also sell the phone cases, and then I'll be the one at the top. So that's exactly what I did.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's what I did for quite a few years.
That's well, it's a good idea, I suppose. At that time, yeah, probably phone cases, really. That's would have been sort of relatively new, I would have thought, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, at that time, I think the iPhone 5 had just come out when I first started university. We're going back 10 years now. So
I'm just thinking that phones weren't even invented when I left university. So.
Well, this is it. I know, so you've got to move with the times, though, haven't you? Yeah, so this is where I was at. I was really trying to sort of... I wasn't really looking to make a business then, though. Like, that was never my intention. I don't know how my path's led us here, but it just has, you know. It's just all been very natural progression, to be honest.
I mean, it sounds that way. So you've... So basically... School, I think, to be fair, you're possibly doing yourself down a little bit in terms of your academic capability, because you couldn't get the exams if you weren't. No. Same with sort of college, and then with university, we've had maybe it's a bad day on the final exam, but you've come out with what seems like some really useful and good experience.
Oh, yeah, you know, I have got really good qualifications, and I'm forever grateful for that, because I have done really well in my things. You know, I probably should have applied myself more, and I could have done better, but you know, what I've got, and I made the most of what I've got. Really.
Absolutely. And so you've left university, you've been doing little bits, and were you selling on eBay, were you?
Yeah. So when I first basically started selling, it was nothing like what it is now. It wasn't really social media. It was like literally, you upload your product, people will find your product, and people will buy your product, and that was it. That was the world of selling.
Was it
10
just
years
eBay?
Ago. I did eBay and Etsy back then.
Because Etsy of recent years, I think, has started to become really quite popular.
Yeah, well, Etsy, when I first started out, was quite a small website, and you found what happened in that place at that time was it was mainly Americans. It wasn't really a UK market. There was very, very few UK, what they call traders. It was all mainly American. So a lot of my products from there ended up actually going off to America. I dealt a lot with America at that time. And the funny thing is as well with Etsy, I used to buy in from China and send back to China quite a lot as well. So it was all international markets then. So it was just about learning that.
That's quite interesting, because you're actually quite ahead of your time in that respect.
Yeah. I mean, for such a young person as well, it was quite difficult, because, like I say, it was never my intention to make a business out of it. To me, it was a little bit of a side hustle.
How did you find Etsy then? I mean,
I don't actually know. It probably would have just been from a Google search.
Yeah.
You know.
So you're just researching about. So you've made a bit of money at university, like sort of selling a few bits and pieces, and then you're just looking at how you can kind of expand on that.
I don't know how it come to us, to be honest. I mean, like I say, there wasn't much advertising for it then because it was nowhere near the size company that it is now.
No.
There was nowhere near the same amount of advertising as what there is now in Etsy. So I think it was just a natural Google, where are you, where can I sell, please? And that was it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that presumably worked out okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's seen us through. Yeah.
And so what was your process back then? Were you just kind of making things, selling?
Yeah. So there was like I say, when back then it wasn't really a business. I had no business plan. I didn't have an idea. I had no sort of, this is what I want to do in my life and this is where it's going to go. I was literally just buying things and sticking them online and going, oh well, we'll see if we can make a little bit of money from that, and then that'll pay for my holiday in the summer, or it'll.
Did it never occur to you to maybe look for a sales focused job?
No.
No, you just didn't want to do that. It's just because I mean, your main thing that you've been speaking about so far is your sales.
Yeah.
And you know, because I mean, for my first job was sales focused, and I think if you're working for yourself, you can't really do it if you're not selling, even if it's like sort of more sort of passive selling, but you've clearly have developed those skills.
Well, to be honest with you, I think from day one I always knew I didn't really want to work for the man. I wanted my own thing.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to really put money into, no, it sounds a bit selfish, but I didn't want to put money into someone else's dream and make their dream come true, and I could have my own.
I don't think that's selfish at all.
You know, I could build it for myself, but if I worked for someone else, essentially I'm building theirs and not mine. So I think this is where it's just stemmed from, really.
Yeah. Were you aware of the sales skills that you were developing?
No.
I mean, just from what you've told me, you're skilled in both e-commerce and sales.
Yeah.
Both quite valuable commodities to any other business, but it's not even something that you've really thought about, is it?
It never even crossed my mind, you know. No, like I say, the progression to getting here this day, I couldn't even tell you how it happened. I don't know how I've ended up in this situation. I've just landed here and it's great. I love it, but you know, I don't know. I don't know these things. I just look back at and I just think, to me, in my mind, then it was literally I was just making a bit of extra money. I was putting things online and then people were buying them, and great, that was it.
Obviously, this is now after you've left university. Is this how you were sort of spending most of your time then? Just
well, no, I sort of went a bit further afield. Then I decided then that I wanted a clothing business, so that's where I went next. So while I was doing this, I then decided I'm going to have a clothing business, and let's give this a go. You know, there's people suddenly popping up all over the place, opening these little boutiques. And just as I was looking at one come up for sale, just in Stanley, and I thought, I'm going to go and buy it. So I went and bought it.
So what kind of clothes?
So it was all women's clothes and children's clothes, and it was just a little shop. It was like upstairs in Stanley. And the girl who was selling it was moving away, and she was selling all of our stock with it. But in turn, with getting all of her stock, I also got all of our suppliers list as well. Right. So that was really handy to have. So I thought, right, let's try, let's do it. If it fails, it fails. If it goes, it goes.
That would appear to. I don't know much about that industry, but the supplier list.
Yeah. I mean, it's really quite a hard industry to break, that one, and I must admit,
I've always found it quite interesting because, from a logical perspective, you would assume that suppliers just want to get their stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I've never really understood about why sort of people new into any industry struggle to get to these suppliers.
So I think a lot of it's quite quality control, actually. What you'll find is if you, like, I had quite a lot of clothes made out in China at one point. And if you order a sample in from China of anything in the world, whether you're a candle maker, cup maker, whatever, they will charge premium for their samples.
Right.
If you say you get a dress for £1, they make you a dress for £1, they'll charge you £100 for a sample.
Right.
Yeah. And then if you don't like that sample, there's your £100 gone. And that's the reality of working with factories overseas. So a lot of the things I think is like really down to quality control when it comes to things like that.
But you managed to sort of circumvent that by...
Yeah, so like I say, when I went back to this girl and I got her supply list, it actually turned out that there was a lot more people over in this country that I hadn't realised about, where you could sort of, like an agency where you could go through them to get to China, and they'd already tried and tested the factory.
Right, I see. So they're
Yeah,
that sort of middleman.
yeah.
Process.
So you got a middleman in it, and you did pay a little bit more. But then when you take it off your £100 sample, you're probably paying about the same price, you know, and then you get like 10 times your amount for what you were paying anyway. So yeah, it was quite a hard world to navigate, that one.
It does sound confusing.
Yeah, it's very complicated.
But you've managed that. So what happened to your shop?
So the shop was in the middle of Stanley, and it didn't do very well. It was sort of got to the point, I was upstairs and I was out the way, and it was quite an old building. And I mean, we had a little cafe opposite, but the footfall wasn't great. We were down at the bottom of Stanley.
Right.
And like every premises that I was looking at, with like even in concert and places like that, where they were talking about 1,500 a month in the peak times, you know. And this was the time when the internet was starting to get really big. So all of these high street shops were starting to fail.
Right.
So it was like, should I come out of there or should I stay? And I stayed as long as I could. And then in the end, I just thought, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth staying here. I'm making more money online than I am coming and sitting in the shop. I wasn't paying myself a wage, you know, for sitting there all day when I could be at home packing orders and sorting out admin and doing all bits. So I'm at here all day.
It's interesting because in a way you could see where things were going because you're selling online.
Yeah.
You're selling in a shop. One's working, one's not.
Yeah.
And that's, I suppose, what would have been a worse situation would be if you'd have just been in the shop and relying on that, but at least you kind of knew where to go. And I mean, did owning the shop, I mean, did that give you any sort of lessons that you could then apply?
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously I've been in that situation now, so obviously I've had the shop. And I think, like I always say in business, you've got to sort of fail somewhere to learn. You know, you've got to have a failure to have growth.
Yes.
There's, you know, like millionaires haven't made the millions overnight.
No.
And I think having that shop, it made us like sort of understand it, like the industry a bit better. Like your marketing and your appearance and your audience and things like that, and sort of like where money's being spent. I was probably in the wrong area. Yeah, I was never going to become a millionaire working on Stanley High Street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's a nice place, but it's not the place where people spend a lot of money.
No.
You know, and it's probably the same with concert. You don't make millions of pounds a day in concert, so. You know,
not on the high streets.
No. Well, the high streets are dying. I mean, every time you go up now, there's less and less people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a big learning curve to the fact that I didn't want to be in a shop. A shop wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find this being there? Did you find that a little bit boring as well?
Yeah, because I wasn't getting the people coming in.
No, it's. I mean, I'd imagine. Well, I mean, I've done shop work myself, and it's. I remember. Can you remember? Would have been Blockbuster video. Or
oh yeah,
I was going to say, I'm not sure if you were too young for that. I worked for Ritz Video in York before they became Blockbuster,
right.
And there weren't many people that come in there.
Yeah.
But I used to really like that because I could just chill out.
Yeah.
But that's working for someone else. If I own the business, if I own the business, then that is a very different
like I say, that was my wage. That was what I was supposed to be relying on to keep everything afloat, you know. And if I wasn't getting the footfall, I wasn't getting the customers. I mean, I could look out the window at one point and there might be 2 people on the street, you know, and it wasn't great. It wasn't great, but I tried it.
Yeah, learned from it. That's great.
I tried it. You know, I had a go. I made a go of it. It didn't work out. It doesn't matter.
No. So that being the case, what happened then?
Yeah, so I ended up moving my stock over into an office, and I was there for a couple of months. I was sort of working online. And all my stock got stolen out of this office.
Whereabouts was your office?
Just in concert.
Right.
And it ended up being quite a long slog of who did it, who done it. And it all ended up going off to the police and nothing got done about it.
I was going to say, it's that. Were you insured? Were the police able to do anything?
No, believe it or not, actually, this was another big expensive learning curve for me. I wasn't insured.
Right.
Not at that time, so I lost everything. Absolutely everything. And
can I ask you how much?
It was about 12,500. Yeah.
It's you can laugh about it now.
Well, I can now. Yeah.
I can now. Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, I think I would have been crying at the time.
Well, I was crying at the time, but you know,
Yeah.
you move on, you go forward. But like I say, we all got up from that, and it was a bit of a hard time. It was a bit sort of, where do I go from here now? Do I let this defeat us, or do I go again? So I went again.
Yeah.
Tried again. Got back on my feet. let's go again. Let's try again.
That must have taken some doing. I mean, to lose, because how long ago was that?
So it would have been 5 years this year. It was.
Right. So because I mean that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it just shows a real strength of character to think, right, okay, dust yourself off.
Yeah.
Because most people don't get a hit as big as that.
Well, what else could I do, really? What else? Where could I go?
You didn't want to work for anyone else, did you?
No. No one else is having me. I'm my person.
No, that's fair enough.
No, I just thought, you know what, I could have sat and moped about it, I could have sat and moaned about it, and I could have sat and let it get to us, or I could have got up and tried again with something else and went in a different route.
So all the meanwhile, the stock that got stolen, was that the stuff that you were selling in the shop?
Yeah. So that was all my stock. You know, I was quite lucky that I had a small portion of it at home, and that I used to sell to then get back on my feet and start again. Really.
Right. And were you selling the same stuff in the shop as you were online?
Yeah.
So you got those different avenues.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you got this consistent online.
Yeah. So like I say, what I done, I just like sold all that off, and I thought rather than starting up in that same thing again, I want something totally fresh. I don't really want to have to be stuck lingering around.
No.
Something that's going to have that every time I look at it. That's what I'm going to think of is what's happened there.
Yeah.
So this is when the printing started. This is when all the printing began.
Right. Okay. This. What made you decide about the printing?
Oh, well, I don't know. It's another thing. I just ended up here. I don't know how I ended up here, but I'm here.
Well, it's just interesting because, like, sort of where you are now in terms of printing on things, there is that link back to sort of what you enjoyed at school and at college. For me.
You know, I think what a lot of it was I quite like handmade stuff. Every time it comes around sort of Christmas and things like that, I like giving personal gifts. I like to give things different. And I was looking at the market and thinking, wow, God, look at what people are charging for that. How have they made that? And then it was a case of sitting on YouTube. Oh, well, right. Well, I'd go offline and then I'd go and have a look at how much that bit of kit is. And I go, right, I can afford that. I'll buy that. And then it's just slowly progressed from there. It's just all sort of swings, roundabouts and learning curves, and every day is a new day.
There's a real consistency with your research, though. So, I mean...
Oh, yeah.
It's because, I mean, it's right from university, you've kind of been researching, whether consciously or unconsciously, whatever it was. I don't go
into anything blind.
Yeah.
I don't just like to throw money about. I don't have money just to throw about, you know. Like, I'm not a multi-millionaire sat here with pounds in the bank, like, where I can just go off, it feels. I need to make sure that this works, or that I'm going to get something out of it. I can't go in and be like, I'm going to fail. I have to go in and make a good go of it, and if it doesn't work, then I've got something there, or I can do something else with it. It's not really somewhere where I can be like, oh, it hasn't worked.
So you got to make it work out of necessity then, to pay bills and things like that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, my goal from business was always to make sure that the bills were paid and that money was coming in, you know, and just see how things go.
Right. So you've got your printer, a specialist printer, presume. We're not talking about the kind of thing that's sat on someone's computer desk. It's a bit more expensive than that.
Yeah.
And what then? Because I mean, what you've not really talked about, and even though you did mention this very briefly earlier, when you first started out, you were on social media. You were just kind of on websites, and I think, in many ways, I think back in those days, eBay, Etsy, they almost brought a buying audience with them.
Yeah, well, this is the thing now. I mean, today in 2024, the marketing of a business is so different to where I started. So then it was literally you just used to upload your product and go, and then you've seen the money. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, there was none of this sort of pay to advertise here, put your advertise here and things like that, because Facebook wasn't even that big then.
No.
I mean, there was a very small select few businesses that had made really good money out of platforms like that. But then the other ones that were starting to try and slot in and find the place weren't really finding it. And I felt like I was in there, so I left social media on the back burner. That has never been the forefront of my business, social media, ever, until this year.
It's interesting, given that you are fundamentally, you've always been e-commerce, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, yeah. And like I say, social media just wasn't my thing. Like, I don't really use it personally either. Like, I'll go on, I'll have a look at things, but I don't really post about my life or anything on there. You know, I don't do a lot of social media stuff, to be honest. So it was just, that's always been at the back of my priorities until all of this year with the influencers, the TikTokers, all of this stuff. This is the bit that I'm on learning now.
Right.
This is where my social media's come in, and this is where I'm really starting to ramp up the social media this year.
Right. So when you first started with printing, I mean, how many years ago are we talking there?
So it's pre-lockdown. I think I started roughly the year before lockdown. It would have been, and it was, lockdown. It was a horrible time, but for me it was a godsend because it gave me all of this time to sit in the day and practice everything that I needed to do. You know, and then because people were sat at home.
I think you're the first person I've spoken to that said that, but that's
know
brilliant.
what, I loved it. Bring it back. No, but I literally had all this time to sit at home and just work and practice. But because nobody else was out spending money, they were then spending money with me. So then all this money that was coming into me, I was then flipping around and going buying new machines and buying new products and testing everything to start building a nice long product line.
And you mentioned to me earlier that all this machinery, all your products and stuff like that are filling your house.
Yes.
And just to clarify, this is why we're now filming from your grandma's house.
Yes.
Because your house is full.
Yeah, my house comes.
So if we could say special thanks to Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah.
And Grandpa did make us a lovely cup of tea earlier on, so thank you for that. And I think a big shout out there. So yeah, so you've had I'm trying to think, about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, in this industry I have, but I think probably within the past sort of 1-2 years is where I've really started to grow it. A lot of it was practicing because I must admit when I first started I didn't get it right.
Yeah. I
just couldn't get everything right. It was all for all it looks great and it looks quite easy. Yeah, it's just put a photo on a cup. It's not. It's all, you've got to learn all sorts of times and temperatures and printing methods and papers, and you've got all this different suppliers to work with and test.
That's interesting because I think, to be fair to someone like myself who doesn't know, you would just assume that there'd be some sort of computer process that does all that for you, but that's not the case.
You know what, I think there's probably everybody looking at me now will probably think that and think that I work a really easy job, but I do not. I do not work an easy job, and I think this is where the competition in this market comes from as well, is because during lockdown everybody thought, oh yeah, I'll go and buy a printer and I'll buy a Cricut cutter, like one of these cutters that cuts all the vinyl, and I can make a business and let's go for it. And it's not that case at all. It is so much more to it than what's on the table here. There's so much more that goes on behind the scenes. I mean, the amount of testing and things that you've got to do, and then when you start touching on like children's wear and children's items, you've then got to have them fire tested and safety tested. If you go into cosmetics, you've then got to have all your cosmetics testing. It is crazy.
Wow.
It is crazy. And it's all money.
Yes,
Everything
it is, yeah. I think that's the thing as well. It's like when people see a price, they don't necessarily appreciate the cost.
Well, this is it, yeah. I mean, I must admit, I don't, to blow me on trumpet a little bit, but I don't think I'm that expensive for what I sell. I really don't think. I'm probably at the lower end of pricing in this market. But the amount that goes on behind actually printing something is unbelievable. Like, I've got to factor in, like, the electrics in my house. I'm running 4 or 5 printers at once in my house, and that's going on my electricity bill at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And I've got, like, all of this sort of stuff to factor in, and there's a lot more than meets the eye than just sticking, a bit of paper on something.
No, well, I mean, certainly the examples that we can see show you've done a good job. What's the most bizarre thing that you've printed so far then?
Oh, well, I take a lot of custom orders, so I do get some quite strange requests. I mean, I don't know whether this is really age appropriate, but I once had someone asking us to do the OnlyFans t-shirts, this online adult work, as I like to call it. I had all of our, she wanted us to do all of our promo t-shirts, which is great. Yeah, I'll do that for you, no problem. I'll do all that, but then that went and got worn on our videos, whatever she was doing. I didn't ask that much.
That's interesting, because my understanding of OnlyFans is that they're not wearing that much.
No.
So there you go. But
So I've had people in doing things like that. I've had people asking. I mean, and I've had I once had a small betting company come to us for promo work. They wanted bikinis done for girls. I must have had them parading around, and I had all their promo work done.
Right, so quite exotic.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it, well, like I say, if there's money to be made there?
Oh, I must admit, it's really fun though. I get to work with some great people. Everybody that I work with is fantastic, really, and I really do get to know some really good businesses as well.
Yeah.
And some of the, I mean, I wouldn't say the bizarre, but they are quite funny. Some of the requests that you get, you get some brilliant things coming through. But it's all good fun. It's all part of the process,
It needs to be, doesn't it? Really,
Yeah,
needs to be.
Uh-huh.
So, and currently you're working from home, but that's,
I am.
That's not ideal for you, is it?
No, it's not now. I mean, I've got a toddler as well, so she's in the house. She's in nursery 3 days a week, and then all the rest of the day she's in the house. So trying to keep that life separate from my family life, and then trying to keep it all sort of safe and things. It's hard now. With the more the business is expanding, the harder it's getting to contain it.
Yeah.
I kind of keep it all in the house forever. It's going to have to move. So we're sort of in the process of sort of looking at places to go. Is there anywhere that we could put the business? Units, offices, just somewhere where we can branch a bit more and I can buy some more machines.
Just because you seem to be quite excited at the prospect of buying machines, and I know basically like sort of from buying microphones, video camera gear, that kind of thing, you can get sort of overcome with what we call gear lust. Is that the same when you're buying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could buy a machine that could stick it on my bench and I'll sit and look at it for 6 months before it gets used, but it's great because I've got it. I've got one and that's what it's like. This is what I do. But every time something new gets brought out into the market as well, I'll buy it.
Good for you, yeah.
Why not?
Quite right.
Get the first one out.
We've got to have some fun as well, haven't we?
Well, that's it, exactly, I know. And it is fun when you're learning as well, I presume, but yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So do you, I mean, with your toddler, would you anticipate you'll have a little helper before long?
Oh, she's already a little helper. She takes my parcels down to the post office with us and carries me bags. Yeah, she's
really
great. Yeah, she loves it.
Child labour laws.
I know.
I can't get my kids to help me with mine, so make the most of it while it lasts.
Yeah, I know it'll not be like that forever, but yeah, she's good.
In terms of career lows, I think we've already hit on that one.
Yeah, I think I've hit rock bottom with some of them. Yeah.
So we'll not go back there, but I mean, in terms of your career highs and your business highs, what's the thing you're most proud of in terms of what you've achieved to date?
I don't know whether I could say that that is something that I'm most proud of on its own. I think I'm quite proud of everything, to be honest. I mean, I'm not really old to be this far along in business. I've had great opportunities. I mean, at one point, I had a business mentor that the council assigned us, and I went along with him to go to his groups, and I used to sit and talk to his groups. And I must admit, what I find was when it was so young, being so young in business, it tends to feel quite like it being patronising. Because he'd brought me along to go and speak to people that was the same at university. And I'm probably younger than some of these people, and I was a lot younger than a lot of these people that I went along with this man. I mean, he was a businessman, and he was mentoring me. And he took me along to his thing. And I did some talking, and when everybody walked in the room, I was so shocked, about the age of these people, because they were 40, 50, 60, just starting out. And there was me, 25, at the front, talking to these people about what I do and where I plan to go. And I just thought, this feels awful. These people have got so much more experience than me, and I'm sat here telling them about how far I've come and what I've done in
I think age can be misleading when it comes to experience, though, because I mean, you someone like yourself, however long you've been in business, you've got all that experience of doing things, of trying things, and of failing at things, and I couldn't agree more with what you said. You need to fail at something to actually learn.
Oh, 100%.
I really do agree with that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with a lot of people that have maybe been in a job for X number of years, they've not necessarily got that many years experience. They've maybe got 1 year's experience that'd be repeated 20 times for some people. And I mean, anyone that's prepared to forego that and jump on something for themselves, I mean, I've got 100% respect for. And that's why I'm doing this, to try and like just sort of just showcase what people have got going on. But yeah, it does always impress me when I see someone your age, you know, sort of in your early 30s.
Yeah.
We'll not put an exact because it's rude to ask. You're 30?
I'm 30, yeah.
Oh, right, wow.
Yeah, just...
Right, that is impressive then.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, like I say, I've got a lot under my belt for the age of us.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a lot of experience in that. Some people twice my age may not have. You know, and this is why it feels strange to me coming in and talking to someone about where I'm at in life, because other people might look and think, oh, she doesn't know anything. She's only 30 years old. How can she know something? You know, but I've had such a roller coaster to get to this point.
Yeah.
You know, it's I have got some really, really interesting experiences under there to do with business.
Absolutely.
This far along.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as I say, just from talking to you, it's, you know, you're retail expert, e-commerce expert, and you've got all these ideas going. You've been buying and selling and just kept yourself afloat.
Yeah, well, you know,
pretty much all your adult life, really.
I think when it got to the stage, like I talked about before, of where I lost everything, I could have easily given up then.
I don't think anyone would have thought any the less of you for doing that. I'm just going to get a job. But
yeah, I could have easily have just threw the towel and say that's enough. That's broke me, but I didn't.
But you're still here.
Yeah.
So we're still here now. Yeah. Some fantastic experience for your age. What about the future? What's the future look like?
Well, we're starting to grow now. Like I say, we've just swapped over to a limited company now, so I'm now no longer a me, I am. I'm a now we, us, they, whatever you want to call us, you know. But now that's changed over a limited company. We've sort of got an accountant in place now who's helping progress things. Now I've got better insights about how and where to spend money rather than just throwing it at stuff. I mean, I cannot physically fit another piece of equipment in that house. I cannot. I think it'll be in the garden if I do buy any more.
Thanks again, Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah. So I cannot fit anything in there. So I think obviously the next natural progression is to sort of move out into a unit, you know. And like I say, now where I'm at now, I've sort of learned this past few months about the importance of social media. I've never ever felt like this before about social media.
Yeah.
I've never knew how important it actually is.
Does that excite you?
It does, because it's something that I've never dealt with before.
Yeah.
So obviously all my expertise in printing now are well spent. I can literally turn things around in an hour and have all the orders out the door. So now I've got all these hours now to sit and play with and get stuff sort of in place for social media. So this is where everything's at the moment. It's all the advertising and the getting people in and just like showcasing what I do, you know, and just saying like, oh, hey, look, this is what I've got. This is what I do. And sort of going that way.
It sounds fantastic. You have achieved a lot in your relatively short life, certainly compared to me, compared to my life. And Toni, I wish you all the success.
Thank you very much. Thank
forward.
you.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for coming in. Thank
and
you
all the
so
best.
much.
Thanks again.